our test tiles. And I'm going to move this piece of paper. I'm going to clean up my space. Now notice after every sort of project, I'm cleaning up my space. And that's just because I've got these little crummy bits. And if I were to leave them on my piece, I don't know if you can see the bottom of that, but I've got some crumbs just embedded into the bottom of my business card holder. That's not the look. That's not the look we want. It's not ideal. So if we take care of the little things when we're not thinking about them, if we just build good habits, then they won't mess us up in the future, right? So I'm just going to clean off my space, right? And we are going to get started with our test tiles. So we have 4 test tiles we're working on today. So we have 4 we've got, and these are the finished versions. And those test tiles are wood, fabric or skin or leather, even, dirt, and terracig. This is our burnishing tile. We're going to do this one first. We are going to take one of our circles that we've set aside, and this needs to happen right now, and I will be right back. So we're going with some terracig. This is on the shelf in the glaze room that says stains, but make sure you get the jar that says Terra Sigillata. Okay, this is blue, and I thought this would be a good enough color so that we could tell, we could see it very easily. So what we're going to do, first and foremost, is we're just going to paint a slight wash of this blue terracig on the top. I'm not going to use this paintbrush because it's a little dirty. We're just going to grab another one. So keep that in mind. Try not to mess up our tiles, our colors, by intermixing. So we're going to do, ideally, a couple layers. Just like that. We're going to do this one. We're going to set it aside, and we're going to do 2 more. Just so it's not transparent, because you can still kind of see the clay underneath. But if I were to try to add more, it wouldn't work. But we're going to set that aside, and we'll come back to it. We're going to do our first coat of terracig and move it aside. All right. So our first tile is probably the easiest one to start with. We're going to do wood. Now, what we're looking for is sort of a wood grain, and I don't know how well it shows up on camera, but I'll show you what it looks like as we get into it. So, using your wooden knife right here, you're going to take the slightly pointed end, and we're going to sort of carve a wood grain texture. Now, not exactly a wood grain texture, but a mock wood grain texture. And wood it's fibrous, so all your patterns need to go the same direction. So if your wood is going horizontal, they all need to go horizontal. But if your wood is going vertical, then they all need to go vertical. So a lot of wood has something called a burl or a knot in it, and we're going to start there, and I really think that's the best place to start. It sort of gives you a good guide to where the rest of the piece is going to go. So I will start, and I'm just going to carve in, and just like with our stamp, you want to carve in a little deeply, so that way we get enough impression that when we go to decorate it, it makes a difference. Because what we're going to do is, once this is fully carved, we're going to fire it, and we're going to do a wash over it. And the wash is going to embed the darker pigment into these crevices So that way when we put a lighter pigment on top, we kind of get a really cool deviation. All right, so I'm just going to keep going, and I'm just going to make some larger lines. So I've decided my wood goes this way, so I'm just going to follow that same sort of concept. And I'm just going to hit it with the pointy end of my wooden knife, but I don't want to tear it. I just want to sort of embed out. So as I am carving, I'm scraping the material away with my other finger. It's sort of a multitasking experience. So I'm just going to keep going. And my lines don't have to be 100% all the way across. We are shooting for just general, because we're going to go in here in just a moment and add in some detail. So for now, we're just going to dig through and create a wood grain. Just a basic one. Make some cut in half, some should go all the way, but just generally cover the whole surface. And just like with our stamps and rollers, we don't want to dig lightly. We want to really get in there, because if we only do little digs, what's going to happen is this is not going to show up. Okay, we really need to give it the momentum. Now, I'm going to grab a different stylus because this one's a little dirty. This is why keeping your tools clean is important. So this is called a stylus. The difference between it and a needle tool, and I don't know if it'll focus, is that it's got a little ball at the end of it. The little ball dulls the sharp point, and it's going to allow you to carve or etch without really like digging in. So what we're going to do is we're going to embellish these larger marks with smaller, more dainty scratches. And this is going to really sort of take foam our wood texture. And if it cuts into your already present marks, that's okay. Sort of follow the lines you've already set for yourself. And just like with before, go ahead and every time you make a scratch or a couple of scratches, clean off your tool, clean off your surface. So that way, by the end of it, we have a really nice carving, tidy texture. We're not worried about a bunch of little boogers hanging. That's the technical term for these. These are boogers, right? They stick in your nose, they stick on your clay piece. So giving it enough time to sort of get out of the way. Follow your guidelines, especially with wood. Wood is organic, but it has like a natural pattern. So if we get crazy with it, it's going to take us out of the illusion. Following the natural grain or the fibrous nature of your wood panel is going to allow it to be more realistic. So since you've already made some more pronounced lines, filling in those spaces along the same, make your smaller lines mirror the larger lines. Nobody's tile is going to be exactly the same. Everybody's going to create a different kind of wood, because what we see in our head is not going to match, which is sort of a nice thing. So I don't expect yours to look exactly like mine, okay? Do your very best, and it'll be okay. So this is what I've got towards the end, and I'm going to use a clean paintbrush, or this is called a spoolie. You use it to clean off your eyebrows, but we've got a version for clay, and you just use it to sort of get rid of those yucky bits, right? So once we get here, what do we need to do? Well, I'll tell you. Give me 1 second. Right, so we're going to coat this in a layer of terra sigillata. And why are we going to do that? Well, we want to create multi-dimensional color, right? Like that, we're fine artists, that's what we do. But if we were to just leave it like this, when terracotta fires, it fires orange. Wood's not exactly orange. So what we need is more of a brown color. So first off, when using any of our Terra Sigs, we want to save ourselves a little bit of labor. So remember with this blue one, you can see the clay through. That's not going to work for us. What we're going to do is we're going to take a clean paintbrush first of all, and we're going to grab some of this. This is the white Terra Sig. It's just a base. And we're going to make sure if it's really clumpy, add a little water. It should be pretty much like thick milk. And we're just going to take a real quick wash, and we're just going to try to brush it lightly over the surface. It doesn't have to be 100%, but we want to make sure we get it mostly covered. But ideally, we don't want to lose our textural detail. So if you start to lose a little bit of that, let it dry, go back, and just re-etch your lines. So we just want to do one coat of that, one coat. We're going to save this for later. This is done. Later, once we fire this to bisque, we're going to add mason stain, and we're going to really decorate this, and we're going to see what it looks like to create a faux wood texture out of clay. So I'm going to put this over here with my blue one. And speaking of the blue one, this is dry enough. So the best way to know it's dry enough, first of all, it's not glossy. But secondly, I can pull my finger away and it doesn't have any material. So I'm going to take that and I'm just going to brush one more coat over it. And we're going to just put it back over there to dry. Now look how much of a difference that second coat has made. This is pretty vibrant, right? We may not need a third coat, but we still need to let it dry because we can't burnish it at this point because it's still glossy and still wet. It's not going to work. So I'm going to put my jars over here to the side, all my paint brushes, and we're going to do the next thing. So the next thing is dirt. How do we make dirt look like dirt, right? And more specifically, potting soil. That's really what we're getting. So we're going to grab our next tile, right here it is, and we're going to do something a little crazy. So just like when we had made our business card holder, we slipped and scored, when we attach foreign materials, we always need to score. We are going to slip and score here, but in a very different way. So I'm going to carve my X's through to create a nice receptive surface. Cool, looks great. All right, so we're going to do something crazy. You're going to need the slip for this. So if you haven't made your own, like I said, we have it for school use. You can just use some of ours. You're going to get it just a big old dollop of it. And you're just going to sort